Greetings, everyone. We are now officially live. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to or welcome back to PB with J. I'm the Jeremy in the J, and this is a plant-based channel. And here we do lots of different things, from my own recipes to cookbook reviews. But one of the things that we do, one of my favorite things that I do anyway on the channel, is these conversations that I get to have with lots of different people, from cookbook authors to people that have had a weight loss journey like myself. And so what we're going to do, we're just waiting for people to load themselves in. I'll say we got a couple people that are already in here. We've got Yvonne from Clearwater. Hello, Yvonne. Fritz. Hello, Fritz from Colorado. Vi from New York. We've got Pat from Connecticut. Annie says hi, Fritz. She's in the other room. We got Jennifer from Toronto. Oh, just around the corner from me, I'm sure. Great. Well, thanks for joining us. Yeah, what else do I say? I just want to get into it. I know people are still loading in. And for those that are watching after, hello. If you have questions for us, throw them on the bottom. I don't know if we'll be able to get to them later on, but you certainly can while you're watching. If you have a question for either myself or our guest today, please put a Q in front of it. It just helps us find it. And then I'll let them build up a bit, and then we'll jump into those a little bit later on in the chat if people have some questions they would like to ask. So today I have the privilege of introducing you to a pretty remarkable individual whose journey towards health and happiness is as inspiring as it is transformative. Christine's story is one of resilience, redemption, and the power of self-discovery. From battling self-doubt and unhealthy habits to finally embracing a plant-based lifestyle, Christine's experience are going to offer invaluable lessons for overcoming adversity and finding strength in vulnerability. Now, what's interesting is here on the channel, I often interview someone who has come out on the other side of a dramatic weight loss or has been plant-based for a while. But today we're going to talk to someone who's actually closer to the start of that journey, which I know a lot of you are as well. So please, if you've got questions, don't keep them to yourselves. And before I bring our guest on, I just want to be sensitive to some people that might be watching and warn them that, and just give a bit of a trigger warning that we might be getting into some sensitive material tonight around mental health and self-harm. I know what these conversations, I'm never sure where they're going to go, but I do know our guest's past includes some tragedy. That said, without further ado, I'd like to bring you all and invite you to meet. I'm going to say your last name wrong. I apologize. Is it Christine Benvenuti? Benvenuti?
Yes.
I didn't butcher it.
Perfect.
Well, welcome, Christine.
You got it. No. Thank you for having me.
Just for those listening know, I think we've got a slight audio delay between Christine and I. So if you hear a bit of a longer pause than normal, just know that I'm trying to give her a space to answer and not cut her off in mid-sentence. So I guess we just start at the very beginning, which is where, everyone kind of starts, right? So give us a background and tell us about life before being plant-based. I know your story goes all the way back to the very beginning.
Yeah, it does. I struggled pretty much my entire life with weight, and was first put on a diet at 6 years old. And I have to say, I love my family. I have nothing against anybody. But words hurt, words stick with you. And so I was put on a diet. My grandmother was very particular, I think. And, of course, I know she did not mean to hurt my feelings or anything like that. But when you go on a diet at 6 years old, what message are you getting, right? I'm not okay.
Yeah.
So that kind of started the cycle, And I really never
can I just jump in?
Me,
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. Sorry,
yeah.
Because I just think of when my kids were 6, how can you tell a kid is in need of a diet at 6? It's hard for you to probably unpack it because you were 6 years old, but can you maybe provided context for what might have made your grandparents think that at 6 years old, this kid needs to go on a diet?
I mean, I was, I was a pudgy kid, but I mean, who wasn't when they were 6 years old? My sister was very petite and little. And, I wasn't what I would consider to be obese as a child by any means.
Mm-hmm.
When I look back at pictures, I don't see it. I was just bigger, I think on the bigger end of the scale, of growth. So
Yeah,
I think I just appeared to be bigger,
right.
not so much fat. But
no, and at
yeah,
that point in time, people didn't really necessarily understand the difference between like the higher percentile of weight and whatnot. So I imagine that couldn't have helped either.
Right. Yeah. And so I can remember, one thing that I do remember very vividly is, and my poor mother, because unfortunately my grandmother had this effect on most of the people in my family. She wasn't afraid to say what was on her mind, when it came to appearance. And so, my mom, she just kind of followed along and did, the best thing. I wasn't starving by any means, but I can remember eating celery and my sister was having ice cream and I just felt like I was being punished for being myself.
Yeah. That's the worst dessert.
Right. No peanut butter or anything. But yeah, so it was kind of, and then getting mixed messages too. I mean, I'm Italian, first of all, so food was everything in my family,
Yeah, you're kind of supposed to be a little overweight, right? When you're Italian?
I guess so. You kind of can't help it. But, food became a Band-Aid, oh, you scraped your knee, here's a cookie, right? Or, oh, yay, you did something great, here's some cake. And then at the same time, you're getting the message that I shouldn't eat that because it's going to make me get big. So it was a lot of mixed messages, right? So that kind of started my relationship with food, was not the norm.
No. And so you're 6, they put you on a diet. I don't imagine that goes well either for your body or your mental health at that age.
Right.
What's it like? At what point, like, where does it go from there into, like, say your adulthood?
I will make one mention from at 12 years old. So I have PCOS, which has like a metabolic syndrome. Back then, that was not a thing. Nobody knew about it. And I do remember seeing paperwork that my mom had when I was 10, between the age of 10 and 12, I gained 40 pounds.
Wow. And so can you unwrap PCOS for those of us that don't know what that stands for?
Yep. It's polycystic ovarian syndrome. So it can cause like insulin resistance.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's a metabolic syndrome.
Right. And was that part of the thing that caused the weight gain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But they didn't know about that back then.
Right.
You were just a fat kid. Right. And I can remember the pediatrician saying to me one time, you have the physique of a high school football player. I'm like, who says that to a girl, first of all? Yeah. I know. Shame on him. But anyway, so those little messages really kind of carried through. And I definitely, I just never felt comfortable in my own skin, and then there was also the shame that went along with food, because I don't want to be this, so I don't want people to see me eating, so I started to do the closet eating thing.
Yeah. And then at this point, so are you now like deciding to diet on your own? I know you've got like a history of just like yo-yo dieting and whatnot, right?
Yeah, it was off and on. And I can remember in high school, I did the Dolly Parton diet, which was like the cabbage soup diet.
Okay.
Lost 30,
I did that.
yeah, lost 30. I love
We called it the
Banana Day.
hospital diet.
Oh,
Oh, Banana
really?
Day was the best. You got bananas and milk, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know it was called the Dolly Parton diet. I always heard we called it the hospital diet because it was the diet that gave people to get ready for surgery. So you could lose like
Right.
10, 15 pounds really quick.
Yeah, and it worked. You know, I did it 3 weeks in a row and lost 30 pounds one summer. And when that weight loss didn't do for me what I thought it was going to do, like suddenly everything was going to be great and perfect. You know, I kind of just fell back into the old cycle again.
Crazy. So for those that don't know
Yeah.
what we were just talking about, this either the Dolly Parton diet or the cabbage soup diet. It's like, was it 10 days? Is that how long it is, or is
Yeah.
it longer than that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
I
mostly
think it
basically it's like
was, yeah.
there's this there's like a cabbage soup recipe that's mostly cabbage, tomato, and some other like some celery and carrots maybe. And you make a giant pot of that, and basically you can eat as much of that as you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
But by the end of the first day, you don't want you don't want any of that because it's kind of bland. It has a very specific. I remember my house just reeking of it.
Yeah.
And then over the course of the couple of days, like every other day, that give you something else. Like maybe you're allowed to have fish the next day or something, or like bland chicken or something.
I thought it was fruit, then vegetables,
Maybe.
then
Yeah.
fruit and vegetables. And I remember there being beef and tomatoes mixed in there too, or something weird.
Yeah. Yeah. But the best day, like you said, the one day was you're allowed to have 3 bananas and milk. And I just remember like making like banana soup with the milk and just like it was by that point it was crazy. It's kind of like doing a reduction diet where you hadn't had anything sweet or fatty for 3 days at that point. So it tasted like the sweetest thing in the world. It really did a good job of resetting your palate, that's for sure.
It definitely did.
Cabbage soup diet. I haven't thought about that stupid thing forever.
I know, right?
So after the Dolly Parton diet, what's next?
We go into my 20s. I was very heavy at that point, probably close to 200 pounds or so. Then I found, let's see, I did all of it. I mean, Weight Watchers multiple times, Slim Fast, you name it. But then I found one. Yep, I found Diet Center, which was 800 calories a day. And yeah, I would go and weigh in every single day. And I lost 80 pounds, but it's not realistic. I mean, I did not look well, No.
And how did you feel? Like you must have felt like starving all the time, right?
Well, I was, and I was exercising a lot too at the time because I got very obsessive about it because I had there was a man that I was very attracted to and thought, okay, I need to lose this weight or he's not going to even notice me. And then I did, and it didn't make a difference, So my reasons for losing weight were always about appearance, not about health. Right. So that's kind of the difference of where things are now. But then by the time I had put all that weight plus back on, and then I did end up meeting someone. I thought we were going to get married, the whole deal. And then he cheated on me. And that pushed me into this downward spiral of depression. And then at that point, I became bulimic.
Oof.
And more in the sense of excessive exercise and abusing laxatives. So it's no way to live. I mean, you end up being like a prisoner in your own body. And I can very clearly remember And I was a size 12. I was ripped. I mean, I had like, I don't know, 18% body fat or something crazy. And like my collarbones are sticking out. I couldn't see it. You know, I had that
No.
whole dysmorphic body image. I still saw someone who was big. And, you know, and I kept that up for 10 years.
Wow.
So I was in the gym for 3 hours a day. And if I couldn't get to the gym, I had a hard time looking in the mirror. So it was hard. And I was a hairdresser at the time. So I'm staring in the mirror all day.
But you're not seeing the real you. You're seeing
No.
Wow.
Not
Even
at
after
all.
10 years, you still had body dysmorphia.
Oh yeah. Yep,
Wow.
for sure.
Wow.
But I did also become the patron saint of the chubby.
What does that mean?
I worked in a facility of a PT clinic at one point, and I overheard a couple of them talking about an overweight patient. And so I went up to them after the fact and I said, hey, guess what? That person knows they're overweight.
Good for
You. They might. Yeah. And I said, they may not know that that's contributing to the issue they have, but they are aware. And there's a reason that they're that way. It's not just because they're lazy, you know, things like that. So I started just kind of, you know, once a big girl, always a big girl.
Yeah.
In here.
Well, good for you, right? Because I think there's also another way that people go that way is like if you come from that background and you've overcome it in any capacity, I think it's really easy to go, well, I'm not that person anymore. And so why and to not want to associate, right? So it's so beautiful that you, and for better or for worse, I think for better, other version of yourself was still there with you and letting you know it's like, you know, be a human being here. Don't. Good for you. I like the patron saint of the chubby.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and it just is always, you know, when I see kids, especially teenagers, and, you know, struggling like that, you know, my heart just goes out to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel like I'm not shy about my stuff because of that. Because if I use what I've been through to help somebody else, then it gives it purpose. And that to me is the most important thing at this point, you know?
Yeah. I remember I had a similar experience when I was losing my weight and I was at the gym one day. And I remember I had two experiences and they're exact opposite of each other. And one was like, there was this other guy that was kind of like me, but bigger at that point, who was there. And I kind of saw two dudes like snickering about him being there. And I just at one point just casually walked over and I was like, just so you know, he's the person that needs this gym more than any of us. So maybe like he's here. Like he's not like sitting down the street at the donut shop. Like he came here. So maybe make him feel welcome. Mm-hmm. And then I had the opposite of that. I had this other guy that I went in first thing of the day. And I was there. My weight loss went off over the course of about a year and a half. I went from like 360 pounds to 180. And I just remember this guy, like we never really talked. We just like, he was there every day and he was just ripped. Right. And one day he just walked over to me and he says, hey, I just wanted to say, I think you're amazing. And it's just kind of like, well, it was just one of those things where I was just like, I didn't even think anyone was paying attention. I just kind of came in, I kept to myself, you know, and he says, I've watched like you transform. And if I hadn't have seen it, I wouldn't believe you're the same person that walked in this door last year, you know? And I was just like, and I just thought of that. I'm like, oh, if more people could just be him and not those other two gym bros, the world would be a better place.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard enough, you know, when you feel uncomfortable in yourself, but I can say I used to be so self-conscious to the point of like, you know, just covering up with whatever I could because I just didn't want anybody to look at me. And that was even at my thinnest. If my jeans didn't fit right, I wouldn't go out
Mm.
on a Saturday night, you know.
Wow.
And that's where things shifted for me, because I can remember sitting on my couch feeling sorry for myself. And this voice in my head, and I think it was God's voice, but said, "You're not living right now. You're existing. You know, do you want to live or not? You know?" And it was a turning point for me, because I started to recognize that's exactly what was happening. I was hiding. And why? Why did I feel like I had to do that? You know? So I started to change my thinking a little bit.
So walk us through that. Like, walk us through like what that next journey looks like for you, going from like, 10 years into how you were still not feeling great about yourself. And then you have that like kind of aha moment. So what happens
Yeah.
next?
So at that point, that's where I did start to develop my faith a lot during that time. And, people would say, God doesn't make junk, and that kind of resonated with me, because I felt like junk, for a good portion of my life. So that kind of helped me a lot to kind of change my identity from being this big girl to just being, a child, God's kid. It's okay. It's pretty cool. There's worse things to be. But, I think then I started to get comfortable with myself as well. And, and weight started to creep up, but it didn't affect me the same way as it did, because there was something that had changed inside, in my mind, in my own heart. And like, I started to like myself for who I was instead of what I looked like. And
That's beautiful.
That's a huge thing, because I literally had to come up with a mantra for myself that I am not my body. My body takes me from point A to point B, but I'm on the inside. So here's my t-shirt idea for you. Look on the front, look deeper. On the back, supermodel on the inside.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah. And so, and that's the thing. If people just stop right there and judge, they're not getting to know the person.
I love that concept of like your body being a separate identity from you. And I think what's interesting about that too is I just think of like how, and this will probably like lead more into what we'll talk about later on in the conversation. But I also think about how people take better care of like their cars than they do their bodies, right? They don't go in for checkups unless, something's really, really wrong, but you'll take your car in every 6 months to make sure that you get the oil changed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's interesting for both perspectives of like health, but also just, mental health too. That idea of, and also you don't control, like your body is the vehicle you didn't choose.
Exactly. Yeah.
You were given it at birth, and that's all you get.
Right. And then, and there's been so many things that have changed over the years as far as what's acceptable and what isn't. I mean, when I was a kid, Twiggy was on the cover of the magazines, know, and so, I mean, I'm 58 years old, so, I'm getting there, but I mean, so those were the images that were planted in your brain, and it was all, skinny little people, and that's what everybody thought was beautiful. But that certainly isn't necessarily the truth,
No, the 80s and the 90s are particularly rough for like, I think, women dealing with body self-image, because that's like the age they started to realize they could Photoshop things and like tweak photos and make people and create this like unhealthy body image of what like a person should look like.
Right. And, for me, I've never been a petite woman I was not a little girl. I mean, I can palm a basketball practically, you know, and, but I was trying to achieve something that was never going to be achievable. You know, I was trying to be this petite person, and I'm not a petite girl. So, you know, so there's, you know, perfection is overrated and exhausting. You just can't, you know, there's no, it's like you're going on that treadmill constantly and you're going nowhere, you know.
That's just it.
And yeah, and even back then too, there were no therapists or anything out there for eating disorders. You had to go to Boston or some specialized thing, and unless you were really like anorexic, it was never noticed, you know. And I hid it.
Mm-hmm.
I hid my stuff pretty well, you know. I had everybody fooled. I'm just a gym rat, and I'm, you know, healthy and
yeah.
No. I would rather be in the body I have now with the mindset that I have now than ever be back to where I was, you know.
Well, because I imagine now you're happy, right? Like, I think you found like some peace with where you're at, where I think that's just, that means that that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, I realized this years ago, but if you're not happy as a fat person, you're not going to be happy as a thin person.
Yeah.
You know,
100%. Yeah.
It's like wherever you are, there you go, you know. And, you know, and that's a reality that it's not easy, you know, when you have to face some of your old junk. And I mean, I did go to therapy and stuff over the years, and, you know, started to see my little cycles of allowing myself to, you know, I don't want to say be used so much, but, you know, I would just put myself out there and let people walk all over me. Or, you know, when it came to men, I would just settle because I didn't think anybody else would want me, you know, things like that. And it sets you up for just this roller coaster, you know.
Right. So what brings you, at what point do you start discovering a different way of eating?
Actually, so I had dabbled off and on with like vegetarian, you know, different foods, because I love to cook. You know, cooking is a passion of mine. And so I always like to try different things. And back, I want to say in the 90s, do you remember Stop the Insanity?
No.
It was, no? Okay. So there was a woman named Susan Powder, and she's the first person that did the like volume eating.
Okay.
Low fat, volume, you know, heavy volume. And so I got really into that because I read her book and I was like, oh, I'm not eating chicken anymore. No way. And and you know, I did it for a while. Didn't get the result I was going for, you know, trying to achieve. I did
what
feel
was
pretty
what
good.
was the result you were trying to go for with that?
I mean, I was trying to lose weight again, you know,
Right.
I think at that point, that was before I got into my other eating disorder. But, and then in July of 2022, my boyfriend of 6 years, took his own life. And I was present in his last moments. And so going through a trauma, and as hard as that was, I was trying to find something that would keep me occupied,
Right.
you know, and kind of keep my mind moving forward. And I found Gaz Oakley on YouTube and started watching his techniques and how he was cooking, and threw myself into it. Like and I had Marmite in my pantry. I mean, who has Marmite? And started to learn an awful lot. And so I dropped 50 pounds.
Okay.
And, but then, as time started to go by, I was also working in a high school at the time. And I didn't want the kids to see or think of me any differently. They didn't know what happened, but the staff did. And I didn't want people to treat me differently or anything like that. And so I've always been good at hiding behind the smile, so to speak. And so I just pushed through with work, and that really kept me going. And through that first year, I kind of sailed. I did do therapy. I did EMDR therapy, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So it's amazing. It helps you isolate where like a memory is stored in your mind.
Oh, wow.
And it's I don't know how it works, but it really does help a lot.
It works.
Yeah. But PTSD is post, so you never know when that's going to creep up and bite you in the booty. And so in October of this past year, mind you, I had gained all that weight back. Not long after.
The 50 that you had lost once you started following Gaza stuff.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And I was using all the excuses. I couldn't afford it and and I just started to get into a funk. And then I was having a lot of anxiety. And at work, I was starting to notice like personality things that were starting to, I wasn't myself, I was starting to get agitated easily, losing my patience. And I worked with special ed kids, and,
Gotta have patience.
Yeah. And I was just I wasn't Miss B, that's what the kids called me. I was starting to have panic attacks, and I was sometimes leaving the classroom and going into the bathroom because I just needed to take a breath. Mm-hmm. And so that was starting to get worse. But then on New Year's Eve, I wound up in the ER because my ankles and my feet doubled in size. And leading up to that, I was starting to get very out of breath. I couldn't really walk very far. Yeah. And I was just like getting out of breath, putting my clothes on, And there's a history of heart disease in my family, and I know what, heart failure looks like. And I said, oh no. So at first they said that that's not what I was dealing with. They ruled out blood clots and all that. And then I did end up going to a cardiologist, and she did diagnose heart failure with a preserved ejection fraction, which I cannot explain to save my life. But if you're going to have heart failure, that's the one you want.
Oh, okay. That's the good one.
No blockages or anything like that. So I did not have to have surgery or anything. And I came across, as a matter of fact, I came across a couple of YouTube videos. One was yours, and then I watched Forks Over Knives, and that was the end. I said, I'm done. I don't want to feel like crap anymore. I was 344 pounds. That's a lot of weight to carry, and everything was starting to fall apart. So I just decided, you know what, I'm sick of being on all of this medicine. My goal is to be off of the majority of it,
and that was that was in January, right? That was in January of this year?
Wow. Yep. And so I initially started Weight Watchers again, but did like a vegetarian version. Okay. And I lost some. but it wasn't moving very well. And then I saw Forks Over Knives, and I decided that's it. I'm changing the whole thing. And that was about 8 weeks ago. And in 8 weeks, I'm not even kidding you right now. So 27 pounds down. My triglycerides came down 120 points, which totally blew me away.
Yeah.
My cholesterol hasn't budged yet, but I'm going to say yet, because even though genetically, I mean, in my family, genetically, cholesterol sucks, but, but from what I'm reading and understanding now, that the genetics really don't have as much to, they don't have as much of a hold on you as you think.
Not as much that you can't overcome them with just lifestyle choices, right? I think a lot of people like to lean into that to make excuses for going, well, I'm always going to whatever, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Because people like to make excuses, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm, for sure.
Wow.
And
you emailed me your numbers, and I was so blown away by them and so proud of you. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels, that feels good. I mean, I still can't walk very far without getting winded. And, but I have started trying to do some, like resistance bands and things like that, just to try to get myself stronger. Because if there's anything I miss about being where I was years ago, it's being strong.
Right.
I could do push-ups, and that's not going to happen today, but, I feel very encouraged though, I have to say. And I'm not starving by any means. I think I eat more now than I ever did. And I feel fortunate that I'm a very creative cook, because I don't think I've repeated very many meals in the last 8 weeks, because I've been just trying different things.
Do what we do. Just grab a new cookbook and just cook your way through it for a week.
Oh yeah, I know. I got Scrappy Cooking recently.
Great
and
choice.
That's a fun one.
Great. Still,
yeah.
Carly's a friend of mine now, so I'm gonna pump her up, but I just adore that book. I think that book is, especially for someone at the beginning of their journey, like that's just such a gift for you to have as a resource for so many things. Great sauces, breakfasts, full of great ideas.
Yeah.
Love to Carly.
So it's been a good, easy, the transition was not difficult at all. I think the hardest part for me is salt. And it's not that I crave it, but I'm trying to avoid it because my blood pressure is still on the higher side.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the what some of the challenges are. Like, sorry, you mentioned salt, and I was just saying let's chat about like things that are, especially because this is different than what we normally do with our interviews in terms of someone that's kind of like just 8 weeks in,
right,
and just really on that of starting to thrive. So I'd love to take this opportunity just to like go through any of those things you're dealing with. You can ask me questions. You can throw questions out to the audience, because I know a lot of people watching right now have had some challenges and whatnot too, and some questions are coming in. So we'll get to those questions shortly. Feel free to throw any others in there. But what do you find tricky, if anything, other than just trying to reduce your salt?
Getting enough water.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep my fluid intake because I am on Lasix for my heart failure.
Okay.
So you have to drink a lot because you're getting rid of a lot of fluid. But I would say that in the very beginning, it was hard for me because of all the fiber. I walked around so bloated for like the first 3 weeks, but then I'm like, oh, good. It's a good thing I'm alone right now because it wasn't pretty. But, I think my gut is finally caught up now. So that, I think the gut stuff is probably one of the biggest challenges in trying to figure out what I tolerate well and what I don't tolerate well.
Yeah, I don't
So,
tolerate cauliflower.
as far
My
as
kids
like
will tell you.
the cooking part is really? Oh
No,
yeah. um,
there's a smell sometimes after I've had cauliflower,
that's
and if they see it
funny.
on my plate, they try to take it off.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Oh geez. That's funny. Um, yeah, the as far as the cooking part of it, that for me has been very easy because I feel like I'm putting a puzzle together and I get way too excited about produce. Like it's so funny. I'm
I
like
feel like
Flash Foods. I know you've mentioned it before.
give them a shout out. Go for
Yeah,
it.
Flash Foods like oh my gosh, it's been the best thing because I've been out of work since January. Um, because I had to leave that job because I just couldn't walk around enough and
Mhm.
and then with some of the other things too, I said I can't give those kids what they need, right now. And so I've been out of work. And so um, having a little bit of that extra time has been helpful too, to be able to kind of get creative. But Flash Foods has been a godsend for me because money is so snug. The other day I got 8 turnips for $4.
That's amazing. Willie
I
came home the
know.
other day. I posted this box. There must have been 60 pieces of fruit and vegetables in that we got for like $4. It was like 5 cents
Yeah, I want
a
to go to
piece.
Canada.
It's not always like
They're
that,
more generous in Canada, I
but
think.
yeah, they might be. It could also be. I think people just
Mhm.
aren't using it as much, so they're not spraying it out into more boxes. Once there's more demand,
Yeah.
it might
Mhm.
shift over. I know
Yeah, I think
Willie.
it's a
We
great
like to
thing
share
though.
it. We like to tell people about it, but every time Willie's like, "Don't tell too many people because then they're gonna." There won't be any food for us. So,
Yeah.
but check it out. I
Yeah.
know a lot of people say they don't have it where they live. So here's what you need to do.
Mhm.
If you don't have it where you live currently, you need to call your grocery stores where you live and tell them to get on the app because it's up to the stores to add themselves. Okay. Any store can be on it. It's up to the store. So there's no excuse for them not to do it. That said, some stores do already have like systems in place, like they give money to shelters or not money. So they give food to shelters or they give it to, whatever it is. They might already have a system in place for that. But if they're just chucking it at the end of the day, it's a win-win. It makes sense. They make a little extra money. They don't have to chuck stuff out. You get some savings.
Mhm.
And honestly, I think it's the kind of thing that also might bond you to a store more because you're like, oh, this is a place that cares a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciated that. There was another store I went to and I asked them, do you, mark down your bananas when they start to get brown? And they said, no, we give them to the farm for the pigs. And I'm like, oh, because, which is fine, but I know they're fattening the pigs up for consumption.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
bothered me
yeah,
a little
yeah.
bit, but, you know,
That's fair.
um, and
Well,
but, I don't know.
I was just saying,
Go
I
ahead.
imagine the food stuff, that's the thing that like a lot of people struggle with. Like, what do I eat? But it sounds like because, early on you discovered gas and you're just also like cooking. So I also imagine you're the kind of person that is going to get really, really good at all the swaps. I imagine you're going to be able to look at a recipe like
Yeah.
I do and just be able to go, this becomes this becomes this becomes that. Right.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's
Yeah.
kind of
That's what
like,
I've been doing. Yep.
it's like reading music in a way, right? Some people look at a recipe and they're terrified, and I look at it and I'm like, I can play this song.
Hmm. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure. I mean, I definitely, I love the challenge. I find it very challenging, to create something that, I could fool somebody with that.
right. Oh, but also it's just
For
there's so much
sure.
rewarding
Yeah.
when you feed someone who doesn't eat this way and they don't even. It's better when I don't love when it's like, oh, that's pretty good for plant-based. It's you know what you want to hear. It's like, I just want to hear that's pretty good. I don't need the second part of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right,
great.
right. Yeah. I mean, I
didn't let's see this note from Chris. Did you get the note that came up? Flash Food is going to add 5% tax on it. Oh, well, that's unfortunate, but maybe there's a reason for it. All right, so let's get into. We have a bunch of questions or comments here piling up, so I'm going to get into some of those. Thanks for asking them, everyone. If anyone wants to throw anything else into the chat, now's a good time. First off, we want to say happy birthday to Fritz. I know you guys have been giving Fritz some love in the comments down below, but happy birthday, Fritz.
Happy birthday.
Kimberly is asking if you've ever tried pumpkin tofu, otherwise known as Pum-Fu. So it's like pumpkin seed
tofu. With the pumpkin seeds? I have not. I'm dying to, though.
We did an early experiment where we made some. It's not if you can get your pumpkin seeds cheap, like at a place like Costco, we can get ours actually at a decent price. Otherwise, pumpkin seeds can be not cost prohibitive as the tofu, unfortunately. Right. But it's kind of amazing in that it's got there's like a higher fat content. So what's amazing, if you put it like in an air fryer or just on like a nonstick pan, it fries up as if it's been in oil. And just gets really, really crispy. Yeah. So it's really, really nice for like stir fries and stuff like that. But yeah, like we're getting into, and I know Kimberly's been asking for a soy-free tofu video. At some point in the future, we'll get to it. We're definitely working away on stuff like that. We finally just mastered our own soy tofu, so we'll get a beat on that. Nice. Okay, so Fritz is asking, how do you keep your spirits up? They're also someone who has clinical depression.
Mm-hmm. Gratitude. You know, I shared this with my students at one point and said, you know, if you can stay thankful for 3 things, it will be an umbrella for you when the crap starts to fly out of the sky. Right. And no, it's true, though, because, you know, I could sit here and say, okay, I have a roof over my head, you know, I could be feeling crappy about something, and I'm not going to lie and say that life is perfect by any means. I have my moments, but, you know, my faith is definitely a big part of who I am. And that community really rallied around me a lot and has helped me too. And I think just, you know, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it has to be a conscious choice. You know, there are days I'll be like, I don't want to do anything, you know, and then just be like, you know what? You're either going to get up and move, or you're just going to sit here and exist. And I want to live. I don't want to exist. So that kind of keeps me going, you know?
Yeah. I grew up with like a mom who was very much suck it up, buttercup. And it's like, you can be sad, you can be whatever you want to be, but keep moving, you know? And I've just kept that with me my entire life. Like, you know, even on the days when I wake up and the last thing I want to do is work out, I go, yeah, but just do it. And then it'll be done. And then you're done, you know? So I've always had that. Right. But yeah, I love how you mentioned, so for your 3 things of gratitude, I imagine those are things that are probably constantly shifting or rotating. It's not always the same 3 things, I imagine. Or do you have like 3 things?
They can be, but for me, I think they change a lot. But for somebody who maybe has never like really tried to do that for themselves, have 3 that you just remind yourself every day. I have this, this, and this, you know, and start trying to focus on what you have instead of what you don't have. Because if I were to see everything that I don't have and get focused on that right now, I would be in a ditch somewhere. if I allowed myself to be, but
That's just it.
that's
And
not what I want to be.
No, and I would say take it a step further and write those things down in a place that you can see them.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes it's hard to pull them up when you're in a dark moment, right? So I have I've talked about it before. We have a little video about me doing my bullet journal, but I definitely have, like, at the end of the day, I have to think of at least one thing I was grateful for that day, no matter how the day went. Like, what was the thing I was grateful for today? But the other thing I do at the top of the day is I have this other page that I start off doing what I call my daily intentions. And I have to list 3 things. So again, the 3s. And one is, how do I plan on showing up today? And that's more of an attitude thing. So it's like, today I'm going to be grateful. Today I'm going to be diligent. Today I'm going to be kind, whatever it is, right? This is how I'm going to be today. And the second one is, what does success look like for today? What's one thing that if it happens, today will have been a success? And you can make that as small or as big as you need to, but just make it one thing. Because I think it's so easy for us to just like, and I'm guilty of this, of having a to-do list of like 10 things. And then we beat ourselves up for not being able to do the impossible, So that's the second thing. And the third thing is, what does joy look like today? What is something I can look forward to today? And that could just be as small as your cup of tea, a conversation with Christine, whatever it is. That was my joy today. I'm like, I'm going to chat with Christine tonight. And so
Yay.
I think that really, really helps too, is like doing, like, if you are someone who struggles with those things, I think having a little notebook or something that you can write things in so you can look at it when you need a reminder might be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not always easy. It would be very easy to just lay down and cover yourself with a blanket. But, when you start thinking about it, it's like, okay, well, now what? But even just being able to, and I tell people this a lot as well, but as hard as some of the things that I've gone through were, if I just held them to myself, then what good is it, right? So if I'm able to put those things out there and not be shy about it, hopefully somebody else is inspired and is helped by it. And then it has purpose, and even for my boyfriend, Scott, it gives him purpose as well,
Yeah, 100%.
And
I got to call myself
his memory as well, too.
Yeah, 100%. I got to call myself out. Kimberly, of course, I apologize. Kimberly, I said, write them down so you can look at them. Put them into a voice app or a voice note. You can hear yourself back.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yep.
I didn't mean to exclude you. So thank you for calling me out. Had to do that for myself. Someone's got a suggestion for your salt. Something called Benson's Table Tasty. Never heard of it?
Me either.
My initial, and maybe you can let me know in the comments, my initial thought seeing something like this goes, what's the chemical in there that's replacing the salt? But maybe it's all natural, so I don't know. So I would look that up. But I'm always leery when something, it's like there's like you get like Coke Zero. It's like it tastes just like Coke. It's like, what's in that? I don't know if that's. I don't think that's a lateral move. I think that's now I'm replacing it with a chemical. I might just prefer the sugar. So look it up though. Benson's Table Tasty. Okay. And we have Marianne. Marianne, I was going to ask you this as well. So what does, what did you eat today? How's that? What is like an average day in the kitchen of Christine look like these days?
Okay. So this morning, actually last night, I made black bean burgers with black beans and oatmeal and everything. So I had some left over. This morning, I was feeling savory. I'm usually a sweet breakfast girl, but I was like, those were so good. So I added some sage and a lot of cracked black pepper and turned them into breakfast sausage. And I had that with some kimchi and an orange.
I want to eat at your kitchen. That sounds delicious.
It was so good. It was. And then for lunch, I had made a curry bowl the other night, so I had leftover curry with zucchini and carrots and potato, and oh my gosh, so good. And then for dinner, I did king oyster mushroom. I shredded it and sauteed that and did like a stir fry with it with some roasted red peppers and cauliflower rice. And
Very nice.
yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
Nice. You're probably gonna be like me. I'm the one that colorful. I get all my lunches or whatever leftovers no one else wanted to take. So it's usually like the bottom of the barrel. And then my job at lunch is like, how do I make this better? So that I can enjoy it too.
Yeah.
Vi pointed out that Chef AJ is big on Benson's Table Tasty too. So maybe it's not so bad. So I'm going to look into this.
Cool.
Because I've never heard of this product, but maybe it's
me either.
Amazon. We'll look into it. So I'd love to ask you, because I know that you are, sorry, I'm just looking for my little poster here. So you're 8 weeks in, you said roughly 8, a little bit longer now ish. What's like, I don't want to phrase this in a way that sets it up that like there has to be a goal, but it's like what are your plans? What are your aspirations now that you found this new way of being? What does the future look like? I mean, you mentioned getting off the pills and medication.
Yeah, I think I'll have a future by doing this, first of all, which is a good thing. But I miss being active. So that's something that I really want to do. I'm trying not to get caught up in the number game.
Good.
Because that just messes with my brain. So, I mean, I have weighed every week, but I might push it out longer because then you're guaranteed to see something go down. Because I'm having this like issue with like water retention because of the heart issue. So it can fluctuate. So I'm going by clothing, how I feel, my skin is bright and clear. Like there's so many other things to pay attention to. And I really want to get back on ice skates.
That's a great goal. I love that better than someone saying, I want to be this number on the scale, or this is like, I want to be on ice skates. That's fantastic. No.
I mean, there is a number in my brain, but you know what? It's, I would like to be under 200 pounds. But my lowest weight was 145 pounds on a large frame, and it was not maintainable. No. So I'm probably going to be closer to around 175, and I will look very thin just because of my frame. So, that's fine for me. But if I can get off the majority of my medications, I'll be thrilled, Just so I can say to the doctor, told you so.
Why? What did the doctor say?
Do you know, this is something that I forgot about, but years ago, I used to be able to eat way too much in one sitting. Like, I thought it was weird. And of course, I did get into binge eating and stuff like that too at one point. But I remember asking my doctor, could there be something where the signal is not getting to my brain that I've eaten? Because I feel like I could just continue. Oh, nah. But, having watched Forks Over Knives and seeing those diagrams of the stomach and what fills it and what doesn't, I'm like, son of a gun. If I knew then, so it's crazy, but It's all about medication, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it's a big thing for, I think, a lot of people this way. I just want to let you know, Wooly is also watching from the other room, and she's cheering you on.
Oh, yay. Thank you, Wooly.
She probably heard the ice skates and got very excited for you.
I had a dream about it the other night, so.
Love it. I love that. But here's the thing. That's such a great, like, benchmark too. I think, like, I think someone might look at that and go, well, that's something silly and that's not a strong enough why. I disagree. I'm like, that's such a tangible goal. And definitely once you get, because I think some people might look at that and say, well, okay, but then what happens once you get on the ice skates? So I would like, as long as you've got like a backup and something else to guide you along with that, I love the ice skates.
Yeah. I'm even looking at roller skates too, because I have an issue with my Achilles tendon that is, I need to have surgery on at some point, but I don't want to do that until weight comes down. So just to be able to even go for a nice long walk at some point would be lovely, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's been a while.
Well, that's just it.
Without pain.
No, and I think it's like slow and steady, right, is going to be the game for you. And I think that's great, because I think, and I love where your mentality is, because I think, like, I look at you and like, you're someone that's set up like mentally for long term, because you know that, you know, this is it for you, right? It's the same as mine. Once it clicked in my brain, I'm like, this is it. I know the right path now. I'm done messing around. And then it's just so easy, because that's the hardest part, is just like doing that, you know? And then it's just figuring out, well, what
and
are
I mean, I've done it for the wrong reasons. Yeah. I mean, and I did it for the wrong reasons so many times, and did it for other people, or did it because I thought it was going to do something else magical. And, you know, unfortunately, it took for this diagnosis to kind of light a fire under my butt. But you know what? I'm actually kind of glad that happened now, so that I can get it figured out for once and for all. You know,
that was the beginning of the new chapter.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
I gotta ask.
Second chance with plants.
That's right, because that's your Instagram, right? Second Chance with Plants.
Yeah.
So that's down in the description below. I do want to ask a self-serving question. You mentioned one of our videos was one of the first things you saw when you were looking up stuff. Do you remember what the video was? I'm just curious.
I think it was a warrior. What cookbook?
Oh, the Plant-Based Woman Warrior book review.
Yeah, it was that. And I have to say, Annie just cracks me up. And I just like got sucked in, and I could not stop watching. I must have watched like 10 videos in a row. Because not only to see your success, you know, is obviously very inspiring. But to see like how your family like works together, it's lovely to see.
Well, we edit out all the parts that we don't work together well. So
yeah, I can only imagine. Oh man.
Yeah. So what kind of advice would you give that 6-year-old girl now, or 12-year-old girl, whatever age you want to chat to, if you could go back and just like spend half hour with her? You know, what kind of things would you maybe, you know, little whisper in her ear as she's being told to eat celery instead of ice cream?
Right. First, I would probably say, you know what, you were always okay. You were made on purpose. God didn't make junk when he made you. You know, just be proud of who you are, and, you know, let your little light shine.
I love that. That's really, really, really beautiful. So you already mentioned it, your Instagram, but what's next, and where else can people find you if they want to continue and follow your journey?
Right now, that's kind of it. I mean, I am on Facebook as well under Christine Marie Benvenuti. And by all means, you could shoot me a message. Hopefully I'm going to start trying to do some videos and, you know, do some recipes and things like that. As I get going, I just have to figure out how to do it. That's all.
Well, you give me a shout and I'll help you. I'll help you as best I can. That's for sure.
All right.
Well, thank you so much. You've been so generous with your time. Stick around after. We'll say goodbye to everyone else, and then we'll give
Sure.
ourselves a proper goodbye. But thank you so much for your time. I know how much this means to the people watching right now and the people that will be watching, after this, because it's going to be up here for forever. So thank you so much. And maybe sometime we can come back and do a check-in with you down the line and see where you're at.
I would love that. That would be great. For sure.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks everyone for watching. And again, happy birthday to Fritz and everyone else. We will see you. I don't have a live stream scheduled yet for next week, but stay tuned. That might change. Otherwise, have a lovely evening, everyone.